Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be discussing Windows 10 end of support next year and the migration to Windows 11, and coupling that with insights Flex for devices, explaining how organizations can benefit from a streamlined approach to managing device lifecycle. I'm Ian Murray, Director of Technical Pre-Sales here at Insight, and with me today is Dale Jackson.
Hey, thank you, Ian. Thank you, everybody, for having me today. I'm grateful to be here. I'm a business development manager here at Insight, and my focus is all things Windows. So Windows 11 running on a device, Windows 11 running in a cloud. I'm here to support it.
Thank you, Dale.
All right.
So today's agenda, we'll start off talking about the migration to Windows 11 and the timeline associated with Windows 10 going end of support. And then I'll take over and talk about Insight's Flex for devices and outline the program benefits and components. Dale, tell us about Windows 11.
Thank you. Well, first, I want to talk a little bit about Windows 10. That's the elephant in the room. So Microsoft is holding firm to these dates. October 14th, 2025, Windows 10 is going end of support. We really want to help you be prepared for that and be proactive. Get off of Windows 10 before that drop dead date of October 14th lands. Now, we've already seen some versions of Windows 10, like 2021 H2, go end of support just in this month. And so Microsoft is serious about that. Now, if you don't get off of Windows 10 by that October 14th date, there are some financial consequences, the dreaded extended support. Extended support, as you can see here, has some hefty cost to it based on a user base of 3,000 employees or more. So I wanted to show you this view of it as well, because while dates have an impact, seeing this from a financial perspective has, in my opinion, a bit of a greater impact because it shows the real critical financial cost to a business if you remain on Windows 10 much longer. And moving into Windows 11, so another reason to get off of Windows 10 isn't just because Microsoft is sunsetting the operating system and you potentially could be on that dreaded extended support cycle. Windows 11 brings a ton of benefits to the table. Its simplified interface goes a long way to working across a myriad of devices. So before Windows 10, it worked great on your 14-inch clamshell devices, it worked great on a desktop, but when you started getting into those really tiny screens and then these large workstations with maybe dual 42-inch 4K monitors really wasn't the best. Windows 11 is amazing because it works across a 12.5-inch screen all the way up to multiple 42-inch screens seamlessly, and it's solved the dreaded docking and undocking issue as well. Another great reason to get into Windows 11 now is what you're hearing in the market around AI. AI is no longer a buzzword. It's really here to stay, and it's driving our business going forward. Windows 11 is incorporating many AI features, as well as something called Copilot. So Copilot, you may have experienced in a web browser. There is Copilot for M365, which brings Copilot from the web browser into all of your popular productivity applications that you use in the OS, as well as something called Recall, which is going to help end users find their information quicker and work faster, saves a ton of productivity time. All right. Ian, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dale. Before we move on from this topic, Windows 11 is also going to have an impact on the types of devices that organizations are buying as part of a refresh schedule. Can you talk about some of the hardware requirements for Windows 11 compatibility?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. I was skipping over that part. So for Windows 11 compatibility in an organization, you need a TPM module 2.0. So that's going to take you back to about 5 years. So a device that's 5 years old and newer is a potential candidate for Windows 11 Pro. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. So you go into your desktop management tools like SCCM or Intune. You can run reports to check for the existence of a TPM module. Now, if your device doesn't have a TPM module but has a Pluton module for security, that will work. But if there's no TPM module or secure core like a Pluton module, you're going to have to replace that device.
Excellent. Thank you, Dale. All right, I want to introduce the topic of Insight's Flex for devices. Insight's Flex for devices is our response to the requirement for a device as a service type approach. There are lots of different flavors of DaaS offerings. DaaS has been in the market for about 10 years. And Insight has had DaaS offerings in the past, but now we've really hyper-focused because of the device refreshes that we're expecting as the result of Windows 11 and the end of support for Windows 10, as well as the device refresh for those aging COVID-era laptops that were purchased back in 2020 to allow employees to work remotely. Those are now 4 years old and are requiring refresh, and just other advances in the landscape around AI really penetrating organizations, and organizations are looking at AI chip-enabled laptops as part of that refresh cycle. So there is going to be a large refresh of end-user compute devices for many, many organizations through the rest of 2024 and into 2025 as they ready themselves for that next future sprint. Organizations are also realizing that with a hybrid or fully remote workforce, the old way of supporting, imaging, storing devices on site and trying to fulfill those user requests, it's expensive, it isn't a good end user experience, and they're looking really for ways to save money and improve that user experience, and Insight's Flex for Devices addresses all of those needs. The legacy experience for many organizations that are using that on-site stockroom, on-site resource, providing that imaging, device refresh, device break fix, often looks something like this, where the request starts as a ticket to a service desk. The individual device might be procured through the OEM or hardware manufacturer. It's shipped to the on-site location. There is an inventory of devices managed on-site through a stockroom and an asset management function. Devices are then imaged, apps are loaded, profiles are configured, and now there is the distribution of that imaged endpoint to the end user, which will vary if that user does come into the office on a regular basis, or maybe they're always fully remote. Even when the user has that device, there might also be the need for additional IT support to do that last mile profile load implementation, get access to the apps, migrate data, which can be exacerbated by those employees that aren't in the office on a regular basis. And talking to customers, frequently they tell us that time from the initial issue to the device being fully refreshed and in the hands of the end user can typically be more than 3 weeks. Again, it's an expensive and less than optimal way of managing that device refresh, especially considering the large number of devices that are anticipated to be refreshed for the rest of 2024 and into 2025. So Insight has created 3 different bundles of solutions that are specifically focused around solving these end user issues. Flex Essentials is focused on the forward deployment of replacement refresh devices, or maybe in the merger and acquisition, there is a need to refresh hardware, or if organizations are going through a hiring spurt and need to equip numbers of end users with new models of devices. Our Flex Advanced adds on our sustainability, that is our break fix option, into the mix. So it's forward deployment, device retrieval, and break fix repair. And then Flex Premier adds in additional managed services, including our service desk, a fully managed digital employee experience offering, and managed endpoint to keep those devices patched and current. From looking at a device lifecycle viewpoint, I'm going to read this slide as though it were a clock face, starting at 1 o'clock. Insight uses a DEX telemetry tool to put an agent onto the existing fleet of devices that are currently deployed at the organization site. That is going to report in on the device health and actual real-world performance for every end user on the applications that they're running today. It will identify non-performant devices, devices that are potentially over-provisioned for the needs of the employee, allowing for a redistribution of the devices. And all of this is aimed at prolonging the life of the devices that organizations have and help them move away from a calendar-based refresh. We create a persona-based catalog. Insight has relationships with all of the major OEMs, whether it be Dell, Lenovo, HP, Apple, and others. We are able to provide a persona-based catalog where a frontline worker might get a different device from an AI developer or an executive. This can be a multi-platform mix of Apple as well as Windows PC, and those PCs might come from multiple different hardware manufacturers. We'll create an e-commerce ordering portal based on those catalogs, and we'll develop ITSM integration from our e-commerce portal to your ITSM platform, so which streamlines ordering and eliminates the need for multiple rekeying of orders. Insight is then going to perform that inventory management. We'll do the image and configuration of the devices. We can apply asset tags and kit those devices with a mouse, a keyboard, a camera, monitors, one or multiple monitors. And then we can do that shipping either directly to the employee's home or to the place of business if they are a regular routine office-based worker. Flex Advanced adds in a deep ITSM integration. We also provide that sustainability break fix, and those devices could be in warranty or potentially out of warranty, but there is an economical repair that could prolong the life of that asset. And at asset end of life, we have a whole end of life program with retrieval, refresh, and ideally then that goes into the next procurement phase. Here's a deeper dive into our Flex for Devices offering. And this really illustrates our Essentials, Advanced, and Premier packages. So Essentials, again, is for that forward deployment of the devices. You can see in the center of the screen, we're adding in that digital employee experience, that DEX telemetry, which will help with that intelligent refresh. Advanced adds in our sustainability and that workflow automation and integration. And Premier adds on managed service desk and that full managed DEX offering, managed endpoint. All of these are, go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, and I apologize for jumping in that impromptu, but there's something that you're highlighting here that really resonates with me. So in a former life, I was a desktop administrator, and I really struggled to ensure that my endpoints were fit for the intended purpose and providing an outstanding end user experience. Reason being was we would go and we'd size our endpoints appropriately. i7 processor, 16 gigs of RAM or more, 512 gig hard drive or better, more than adequate to run the applications in the department. But then my cybersecurity team would get their hands on them and load their cybersecurity agents. And other teams would load their agents so that they could do their reporting. Those agents were taking a significant amount of resources away from the end user, and they were having a bad experience and complaining about their assets. That was driving me to replace assets sooner than I needed to. So I was losing significant ROI and having a bad end user experience. What Ian's highlighting with DEX, it's outstanding because now we're going to have real world data on your environment, on how your configuration, your hardware assets are performing with the software that's running on them and the cybersecurity agents, what kind of experience your end user are having, and we can make adjustments or recommend adjustments accordingly so that you can maximize the ROI on your investment in endpoint and not have to refresh prematurely or just be wondering why no one's happy with their i7s. So Ian, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. What a great illustration, the use case and the power of the packages that Insight has created, really focused in on optimizing that device refresh with a real emphasis on the end user experience. Okay, so how does the program work? So from a coverage perspective, we're looking at the existing fleet of devices that are already deployed to those end users, especially from a sustainability aspect for the break fix, warranty, or out of warranty repair. We're expecting device refresh to happen, and somewhat in a linear fashion, but we can also accommodate the accelerated refresh schedules that we're talking about here being emphasized by the Windows 10 end of support, as well as those other factors that are driving those refresh needs. Billing is based on a very simple per device per month basis. Each of those packages has an associated list price associated with it. And it really is an all-encompassing package that is aimed at minimizing any types of overage fees, giving you highly predictable OpEx type billing for the services that go along with that device refresh. Customers are still free to choose whether they buy the devices outright using CapEx, whether they choose to lease the devices, and Insight does have partnerships with the major leasing providers and can help you work through leasing options, or maybe you're financing them in some other way. How you're procuring the devices is largely irrelevant to the services that go along with managing that life cycle. What we're looking at is being able to provide a better end user experience with predictable monthly billing that eliminates the need for that on-site stock management, the on-site resources that are doing, frankly, non-value added tasks within the organization. Those resources are then free to focus on other more strategic initiatives that are going to actually drive better performance within the company. Advanced is based around optimizing that device fleet, prolonging the life of the assets that you already have deployed today, moving from a calendar-based refresh to a more strategic needs-based refresh cycle. And then again, providing that end-user experience-focused refresh, just as Dale illustrated in his example, focusing in on the end-user experience and coming up with really that cost-benefit analysis, allowing you to optimize the deployment of the devices within your fleet. And our premier service is aimed at organizations that no longer want to be involved in end-user support. So allowing Insight to take over that service desk, providing that additional value through eliminating those service desk tickets through the Managed Decks program, keeping your endpoints patched, up to date with operating system and Windows patches, keeping them secure, current, and again, getting out of that end user support function. To illustrate some of the workflows associated with the device refresh, remember that 22 days on that earlier slide for the current scenario. We can get that down on a consistent basis to as little as 5 days from the time that the order is received in our warehouse to it being imaged, kitted, and sent out to the end user. We have our own distribution centers in the US, Canada, throughout Europe, and we have a partner affiliate program where Insight is already partnered, single invoice to the customer, leveraging that partner affiliate for other countries, rest of world. The life cycle associated with that sustainability, refresh, and end of life, replacement devices can be expedited through the warehouse, through the imaging, and sent to the user in as little as 1 business day with next day delivery. The focus is on getting the end user productive as quickly as possible when they have a hard down situation from a damaged or broken laptop.
Yeah, Ian, I'm sorry for jumping in again and prompting in, but this is another area that I get really excited about that solves a real world business challenge for a lot of IT shops. One thing is getting the end user remediated as quickly as possible and up and running when they sustain a failure in their endpoint, whether it's software or hardware. But the other piece here that it gets me really excited is that we're now facilitating the recovery of the damaged asset or failed asset and repair, getting it back into redeployed stock. It's very common in IT for these assets to not get repaired properly. They end up in piles underneath cubicles, behind locked file cabinet drawers, and in worst case scenarios, you have machines that are still under warranty being salvaged for spare parts. You've essentially lost that ROI, that money in that endpoint can now no longer be recovered. So this sustainability service, retrieval, and end of life service that Insight offers goes a long way into maximizing the return on investment that you've made in your endpoint fleet. So Ian, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah, great illustration once again. And another use case for the retrieval might be an exited employee. So maybe you have a remote worker that joined the company, whatever reason they didn't last, but they still have that device sitting at their home address. Insight can manage the retrieval of those assets, and as Dale illustrated, get them repaired, reconditioned, and returned into good stock inventory so that they can be redeployed to another worker elsewhere in the organization. This is an example of our persona-based catalog, and really to illustrate the agnostic approach that Insight has with all of our hardware partners. We want our customers to be able to configure based on the right mix of devices for their different employee personas within their organization. We also believe in employee choice. Certain employees might have a desired form factor, a preference for Apple over Windows. And that's also regularly mentioned by the various analysts are talking about employee satisfaction and employee productivity, giving them that choice of that form factor and device type. Obviously, your IT team, your security team want to control that and not just make it a complete bring your own device free-for-all, but this allows end users to have a certain element of choice in the devices that they want to use within the workspace. So we've mentioned DEX a couple of times throughout this webinar. The DEX telemetry is really focused around that hardware performance and health. So by using that telemetry agent to identify the real world performance and the health, and that might be CPU, RAM, disk, battery, really having visibility into those health elements, and then how that combination of hardware, operating system, BIOS, and applications is performing within that. And as Dale said, right, the security agents that are always routinely deployed by our IT teams, the impact that those are having on that device performance as well. Our full managed DEX allows us to go and take in the application scores, the network performance, whether that's a company network, an employee's home, or maybe even the local coffee shop. We can determine where the network is actually the choke point, and where it might be the application or some other factor that's driving that employee dissatisfaction. All of this is aimed at mass healing using AI technology to prevent issues identified within the digital workplace, prevent those tickets from ever hitting the service desk. That drives cost savings, productivity savings, and improves the employee CSAT scores. Another optional service that Insight's able to add into the Flex packages is our day one support. So typically, the analysts will say that a new hire to the organization is going to generate somewhere between 4 and 12 service desk tickets within their first 90 days of joining an organization. Day one support is aimed at providing a 30-minute scheduled meeting with IT to make sure that your new hires are familiar with the hardware, know how to get access to applications or other self-serve elements, and really eliminate that lost productivity and downtime, getting those employees that are joining the organization as productive as quickly as possible. So Insight is a solutions integrator, and we pride ourselves on driving value for our customers. We have an obsession around being client-focused. We're driven by relationships, and we have a vast expertise within all sorts of different technologies. Hopefully some of that you gleaned from this webinar today. Our portfolio of services is really aimed at solving real-world customer problems that they're unable to solve themselves. And we also have deep partnerships with Microsoft and all of the leading vendors and the category leaders in their spaces. I just want to join with Dale to thank you for joining us for this webinar. Hope you found it useful, informative, and that maybe you learned something that you didn't already know about. If you do have any questions, please visit our website at insight.com. Any closing comments?
No, just thank you everyone for your time. And if you have any questions about migrating from Windows 10 to Windows 11 or deploying Windows 11 PCs in your environment, please reach out to us. We're here to help.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the week.